Good afternoon. My name is Harlan Schilling, and I am the Deputy Chief of Daylu Dena Council in Lower Post. Lower Post is BC's furthest northern community, and I'm very honored to be here with an elder, Rose Caesar. She attended the residential school in our community, so I'm very honored to have her here with us today. Also, a dear friend of the community and becoming a very close friend to myself personally, Premier John Horgan. Also with us is our youth from Lower Post, Tristan Miller. He's been coming with us to different events regarding the residential school systems in our community. So I'm just very honored to be here today to talk about the important day that we made history in this past summer in our community, where we got to tear down the Lower Post Residential School on June 30th, on the anniversary that it shut its doors down for forever as a residential school. So us tearing it down that day was significant, as it was a dark cloud over our community for my entire life. 35 plus years, the chiefs, the community, the survivors have worked to tear that building down. So I'm very honored to be here and talk on behalf of the Kaska Dena. So I just want to thank everybody for this opportunity, to like the Premier and our youth and our elder. And I'd ask if, Rose, would you do an opening prayer for us to start us off in a good way?
Yeah. I'd rather have everybody stand, and I'll do it in my language. Adugurit kolasang kuthya kuyin dali lagur kuyakan da kujat achanda nanizela kuyan dila dasku kanjitali yo kuyakan da kinda. Klaso kun la hi her goin la tu er ninsulin non here kinjitel gotoga sanla. Klang gother go cho in dara go jitanek e go denak e kagan dara. Klan ya so kun la to do janas goin on. Oh, Father God, thank you so much for everything today. Please be with us in our hearts and our mind and body. Thank you for everything that you provide for us, the animals to feed us, the medicines you leave for us to use, the water that is running and it's pure. Please walk with our children, our people, our elders. Thank you so much for today. You allow us to walk another day because you want us to live. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose. To that day was an extremely important day for all, not just the Kaska, but all residential school survivors. The Lower Post Residential School affected, I believe, almost every single First Nation in the Yukon. So, Premier, I just want to open it up to you first and just see, like, what was your thoughts on that day and coming into Lower Post and kind of what were you expecting?
Well, thank you, Deputy Chief Harlan. It is great to be here on the traditional territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh First Nation in the beautiful Bill Reid Gallery in downtown Vancouver to start off a discussion and a dialogue about residential schools, and particularly the profound impact of the residential school in Lower Post. This has been the year of an awakening to an understanding of the profound impact that residential schools had on Indigenous peoples, not just in British Columbia, but across the country. And at this critical point in our collective history, to have the revelations from Tk'emlúps and Secwépemc territory, which were acknowledged for generations by the people from the region, to have the rest of Canada and the rest of the world awaken to what the Commission on Reconciliation, Truth and Reconciliation was really all about. It became real for many, many Canadians this past year. So to have the opportunity at the invite of the Daylu Council to come to Lower Post 2 years ago, 3 years ago now, and to learn about the impact of that school on that community was so moving for my wife and I, and it was an honor and a privilege to be with you and the community and that ceremonial tearing down of that image and that collective memory of a terrible past. And the past of the Kaska Dena is a profoundly positive past, as you've been telling me and Rose has been telling me just today. There's history going back thousands of years that is positive, it's focused on the land and the animals and the people. And so if we can erase the bad period of the residential schools, celebrate the past and build a brighter future for Tristan and the next generation, then we've done good work. And Harlan, your work on council and the broader community to invite Canada to come to Lower Post, to participate in the tearing down of that past and acknowledging and embracing the truth so that true reconciliation can happen. It was a very powerful day, and every time I hang out with you, I get chills. We got to stop meeting like this. It is really important that relationships continue to be built. And to hear Rose in her own language that she had to relearn coming out of residential school, give a prayer today is certainly starting us off in a good way. So I lift my hands, Rose, to you and to all that you've been through to be here with us today with your positive outlook and being a keeper of the knowledge that will be passed down to the next generation, to Olivia and others. It is really inspiring, and the Daylu community is stronger for your presence, stronger for Tristan, and stronger for Harlan. So to all of you, I lift your hands.
No, and thank you. Like that day for me, Premier, when you came to Lower Post, they said 3 years ago, and then that was the very beginning of my step in life as a leader for my community. And as I said before, that day I met you for the very first time, and then 2 years later, we meet again where you came down to our community, and it didn't really feel like you were coming down as Premier John Horgan. You were coming down as John Horgan. Your wife, Ellie, came on the first trip. She got to communicate. She got to connect with the youth, with the mothers, the young, all of the young children in our community, and it was very heartfelt. And I know you and I were upstairs talking just a little bit earlier, and it's kind of funny that you had mentioned to me there was one moment that you'll never forget for the rest of your life, and it was kind of after the ceremony, and it was we were walking back from the river where we just did the groundbreaking ceremony with the youth, and there were no cameras there were no people watching, and out of nowhere you picked up this rock and you threw it, and it echoed. It echoed throughout the whole area, and then all of a sudden, the clapping caught my attention.
Yeah. It was special because it was just the two of us, or it felt like just the two of us. We were walking together, and we were going by the school. It was all fenced in. It couldn't be torn down on the day for health reasons, and I just was so desperate to have one final blow at the residential school system, and this rock it was the size of a baseball, and I scooped it up and I threw it as hard as I could, and the sound, the crack, filled the valley, it felt like at that moment. And it was like, shaking my fist one last time at the residential school system, and to be doing that with you, and both of us had this grin on our face, and then all of a sudden we noticed the elders and they were clapping, and it was like it was one last blow for all of us. And I was it was deeply moving. I'll never, ever forget it. And I wish I could get that rock back because I let her rip. It just swung out of my hand. It was a great thrill.
So the one thing that touched, I think, all of us, myself as a young leader, some of the elders have conveyed how it touched them, that we had not just your government there, but we also had Taylor Backrack. He was there. Minister Cullen, you were there. And then Premier Silver. Even though Lower Post resides in British Columbia, I listened to a very dear friend of mine, an elder that I respect very much, Debbie Grote. She expressed to me that she, as Kaska, we recognized bloodlines, not borders. And so it was very impactful to have the different people that in our specific area, but I felt like we had the support of Canada. And that was a huge win for all of us as Canadians. Premier Silver couldn't be here, but there's a video clip that he has sent in, and so I believe that we'll be able to show that video clip with Premier Silver's comments. And again, I think as Kaska, not knowing borders, it was very important to all of us to have two significant governments that the Kaska have to work with, your office and Premier Silver's office. So on behalf of that, I just want to thank both of you guys for showing and coming.
The demolition of the Lower Post Residential School took place on June the 30th of last year in Lower Post, British Columbia. I'm thankful to Deputy Chief Harlan Schilling for the invite for me to be at this historic event, as well as Liard First Nation Chief Stephen Charlie. It was a ceremony with so much weight, and it was so necessary and was a long time coming. The Lower Post Residential School was located in BC, but many of its students were taken from Yukon First Nations communities. Many survivors and their family members live in the Yukon, and the devastating impacts of residential school continue to be felt throughout the territory. Now, the border between British Columbia and the Yukon does not belong to these First Nations communities. It makes little sense to the families that have shared this land for millennia. The history of the Lower Post Residential School, well, it's tragic and it's shameful, absolutely. Despite the name, it was absolutely not a place of learning. It was a place where culture was erased, where language was silenced, and lives were lost. On this hot June day, as survivors and their family members and those who came to support them gathered, an overwhelming sense of pain and agony was absolutely present. Pain that had been buried in the hearts of survivors for decades was brought out in the open to be confronted and to be released. Now, amongst the pain, the agony, and sorrow, which were all palpable and guttural, another factor was overwhelming, and that was community. In this space, on this day, individuals from many different communities who were bound together by the evil that had existed in this space came together as part of their healing journey. People came together to tell their stories, to throw pieces of the school into the healing fire, to hold and to comfort each other in a time of grief. The demolition was an important step to address this dark history and to break down systems of oppression. The word reconciliation is often used in conversations about moving forward, but we know that words alone are not enough, and the demolition of that building was a tangible action that gives meaning to the word reconciliation. It was humbling to be part of this historic moment. The fact that survivors and their loved ones opened up such an emotional and personal event to government officials like myself truly demonstrated their resilience and their strength. This demolition and the generosity shown to us, or to those of us who did not have a direct connection to the school, it reinforced how important our work is as leaders to address the mistakes of the past and to build a brighter future. Now, going forward, this site will be a place for the community to gather and a place to celebrate and strengthen the resilient culture, traditions, and language of the Kaska people. It will be a place of healing, and it will be a place of teaching.
Thank you, Premier Silver. It was an honor to have you in our community, and your government is always, and yourself is always welcome in Lower Post.
And I think, I know I speak for Sandy, that both of us with the community lobbied the federal government very hard, and to their full credit, Minister Miller came from Ottawa for the event. The Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, found the money to replace the building. But it took the community standing with one voice, with Yukon, with British Columbia, and saying to Ottawa, this is something you have to fix. You have to fix this. And as I say, with all of the events that have been unfolding around residential schools, and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action are being addressed right now. And one of those calls to action was not specifically about Lower Post, but the whole report is about Lower Post. And so full marks to the federal government for hearing the voices from the North, from the territory of the Kaska people. That was the power of it. It wasn't about the Yukon, it wasn't about BC, it wasn't about Canada. It was about the voices from the community saying, we need to move forward, and this is the only way we can do it. And that's where we are today. Thanks to you and to Rose and so many others who have been along the trail, making their voices heard over time. And now it passes to Tristan to do all the hard work as the next generation.
No, and again, like I said, I'm very honored to have the support. Rose, like you were there for when we did the first talks about tearing down the school, and you know, you've been there for me in more than one time, and especially meetings like this where, you know, I get nervous, but What did the day for you when we got to finally have that ceremony and what did it, as a residential school survivor and as a leader for a lot of us, what did it mean to you?
It meant a great deal for me. For the longest time, as long as that building stood up, it brought back a lot of bad memories. And it really meant a lot. So I really want to talk about some of the things that that residential school represented in the community. It reminded us every time that that the residential school was still present in the building. And you know, when you go down there to visit or to participate in Daylu Dena meetings or anything, they always did it in that residential school that the government of Canada let it stand up, and because they didn't have no administrative building, they had to do their business out of that. And it was so disrespectful because it affected so much First Nation children. And you know, they may tear down that school, but the memories and the trauma still is with us. And it stole our identity, our language, our connection with our family, our mothers, a lot of things. And then it's generational effects. I may be walking around today, but it affected, because of my stay in residential school, I affected my kids and my grandkids. So there's a lot of healing that needs to be done, you know, and just to feel good about who you are. It took me many years to finally speak up, to finally find my voice, to finally honor myself as a Kaska woman, and to be proud of who I am. And I have no problem saying that I'm a proud, strong Kaska woman, and I want to make a difference for the generations to come, because I think I'm responsible for some healing to pass down to our children. And there was 12,000 children that went to Lower Post Residential School from all across Yukon and BC. So, you know, could you imagine the generational impacts? It began with me, and it's going down generation. And if we don't do anything about our healing, it will always be present. And compensation didn't cover very much, even though the government of Canada compensate us. It just still didn't feel right, because they can compensate us for all the damage, but there's a lot of physical damage that's still present today. Like a lot of residential school can't have hard time hearing. They have hard time with their ingrown toenails because they wore too small shoes. Even if they complain about it, they had to use it. So I had no choice in a lot of things that was presented to us as a residential school.
No, thank you, Rose. And like being a young leader, it's really hard to know what is right. And even for myself, having Tristan here and the Premier here, this is the right way, is getting direction and listening to how you survived, and not just you, but the thousands of students that went to Lower Post Residential School. For me, and being able to stand with you and even come on these meetings with you, and you give me strength to continue on in the best way that I can.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing I remember, a lot of survivors that day were screaming once that entrance to that building went down, we are still here.
Yeah.
And that was absolutely, I think, the strongest message that sticks with me, and that you're still here. You're down here. You got to see your daughter. I haven't seen your daughter in years.
Yeah.
She is still here.
Yeah.
And we are working and learning together how to break that stigma and break that vicious cycle that the residential school system didn't win.
Yeah, it certainly didn't win because I'm still here. You're right, and I got a voice now. I could speak about anything, and if anybody want to hear my story, I got no shame to tell my story. And you know, we have a lot of Indian residential school generation students out there. You have to get up and go get the help you need to break that cycle. You know, we have to help each other and give support to each other and help your leadership. You know, just take an initiative because there's a lot of help out there to begin your healing journey. And you know, all this alcohol and drugs is not our culture. It never was. And we're all into it, or one way or another. I came through that journey. And it was difficult, but I was in that journey of addictions and journey of Indian residential school trauma. But somehow I found my way out of it. I'm doggone proud to be where I am today, because I got a responsibility to my children and my grandchildren and to the people that I work with and you know, and my Kaska First Nation people.
Oh, Rose, you make me proud. Like I said, I'm always honored to come with you. And I think, you know, we've said it before and we keep saying it, that this is just the beginning. So I hope you're ready, because we got a busy year. We got a lot to do this year. So I'm pretty excited. And next, I'd like to ask Tristan. You know, he's been working with us on a lot of the residential school work. But Tristan, what were your thoughts on that day?
I first wanted to thank Rose for her thoughts, her words, and her wisdom. And for sharing your story with us here today. The strength you have shown and the strength I have witnessed in the short time that I have known you has inspired me and given me strength to be here and speak today. We, as young Indigenous youth, need to hear more stories such as yours, because it shows resilience of First Nation and that healing is possible. I was on the demolition crew that was responsible for preparing the school to be torn down, and that in itself had such a profound effect on me. I felt like I was fighting for the health of my elders and my community. During the ceremony, I was proud as it signaled the end of the past and the beginning of the future, and the healing of our elders and our communities. There was a release of weight on that day. Seeing the empty space every day when I get up and cross the field to go to work, it reminds me that the darkness that building represented is no longer there, and the healing has begun, and is not the end of the healing, it is only the beginning. And I am excited for the new building, as it will assist in facilitating growth and healing in our community. Our people will now have a gathering place that is designed to embrace Indigenous culture. and language instead of destroying it. It will also facilitate and promote healthy living and be a gathering place for our members. I personally have struggled with anger and a sense of belonging throughout my life, which led me down a destructive path. Prior to coming back to my community, I have lived in the city since I was a child. Returning to my traditional territory has shown me how important it is coming back to the land is. It has started me on my own healing journey, which is an example that for us as First Nations, healing is related to the land. It is a source of our language, our culture. We have a sacred duty to protect it and to steward it. It is our responsibility as First Nations to ensure that our land is sustained according to our principles and our laws. My people are trying to do this, to define and declare an important proportion of our traditional territory as a protected area that we govern and steward by our laws. And finally, the teardown of the Lower Post Residential School and the video that will be released today signifies the collaboration and the relationship between government and the Kaska. So I thank you, Premier Horgan, and everyone here today for hearing us. We thank you for the work that has been done and the work that will continue to be done. I thank my elders and my community for entrusting me to come here and speak in front of you today. And I also thank all of my brothers and sisters from all First Nations around this country, because this did not just happen to my community, it happened to all of yours. Sugas nlī. Thank you.
No, thank you, brother. And again, this is the second time, like I said, you've come to these types of gatherings and meetings with us, and it shows strength for not just supporting our elders, but as youth in our community. And you couldn't have put it any better that what we did with our governments were able to overcome that day. Is like I said, we can't fix the past, but together we can look and shape our future together. And again, coming here and helping myself, helping Rose, we share the weight, and together as Kaska, we will pull through. Again, my friend, my brother, I want to thank you for coming along with us on this. And as Rose and the Premier have both stated, that we're just getting started, and you, my brother, are just you've got a long road ahead of you, and I've got my faith in you. And again, I just want to thank you for coming. Minister Cullen, I know you're on Zoom, and you were there that day as well. Again, it was I can't reiterate enough that it just showed how much support that this government gives to First Nations, and specifically, I know the light was on our community that day in Lower Post. But what did that day mean to you, and what are your reflections on that day?
Well, first, thank you so much for the chance to be with you here virtually. I'm in Wet'suwet'en territory and Gitumdan clan territory, so you're all down south now. I get to finally say how much more northern I am than you for once. I'm just really reflecting, Deputy Chief Harlan, on the words of Elder Rose, and how you described it, Rose, about what I'd almost call a cruel indifference of the governments, that not only to subject the Kaska people, but to so many nations, 12,000 children from across the north, put through that place. And then in adding insult to injury, saying you have to keep going back to that place for your people to do their business. And I know the passion and Deputy Chief Harlan, you know the passion of the Premier. Once made aware of this injustice, of this cruel indifference, his passion for helping you in that 35-year struggle to see it change. Tristan, the courage you're showing today and the way that you're talking about your path and your time and finding your way home in I think more ways than one, not just as a location, but as a place of who you are and how challenging that is. That when you talked about creating something new that's designed to embrace the Daylu Dena Council and the Kaska people, as opposed to a place that was designed to destroy or try to destroy, because it failed. I just pay humble witness to what you folks are doing, the journey that you're on. I heard you, Tristan, about the protected areas. We got to spend some time on that together. And I just leave this day thinking about the generosity that your community showed to everybody who came to Lower Post that day, and that people could have been bitter, they could have been consistently angry, but there was just this joyous relief and embrace. And people talked to me about that weight you talked about, Harlan, coming off the shoulders, right, of seeing this day finally come together. And yeah, bloodlines, not borders. I'm going to keep that one. That's important in rethinking about how we approach people who have existed since time immemorial, before anyone got out a map and drew a line arbitrarily across a place and across a people. I thank you. I'm just appreciative. I wish I could be with you here today, but someone's got to be up here, and it's nice to see you all.
No, again, thank you, Minister. Like I said, that day was such a huge success. You know, to pull off a gathering of over 600 people in the middle of a global pandemic. The list of people that we want to thank is just, it's so long. And, you know, the Kaska, the residential school survivors that were affected by that school will be forever grateful for everybody that was there that day. So, Minister, again, you know, we're about to break ground this April for the new building. So I'm sure you'll be getting a phone call from us once we get some lights turned on and everything else. So, as the Premier said, somebody's got to stay in the office and keep the lights on there. So, again, I want to thank everybody. Like I said, it was such a monumental day, and it's forever going to continue to live on in my heart. So I think next we're going to share the video and you know, kind of look at this. This was not just the residential school survivor success, but this was success, I think, for a country, for governments to come together. But importantly, I think for most of all is, Rose, we are still here because of survivors like you. And the hundreds and thousands across our country. That day was yours. You did it.
Thank you.
This village here, Daylu, used to be a gathering place for many nations from various parts of northern Canada. And the residential school has been a sore point for our people for a long time.
I grew up feeling that pain. My community, my people have been talking about getting rid of that horrible building for as long as I can remember. So, you know, here I am at 34 years old, and it's happening now. I'm finally glad that I get to say I'm the last chief to have to actually put up this fight.
Welcome, everyone here today, to our traditional territory of the Kaska. I see my people here. We're all in this together, all our nations. We're all our people. It's amazing that we're here. The Kaska are strong people, and our brothers and sisters in the other nations, we're strong people. You know how I know that? And we're still here.
Metsī nlī, thank you so much, Chief Charlie, for reminding us that we are still here. We are resilient, we are strong, and as he shared, not under my watch will this ever happen again. For those who may not have known, it was exactly 30 years ago that this school stopped running. And so here we are today on the 30th to gather to see it finally be put to rest properly in ceremony, following protocol. With that, I'd like to introduce Deputy Chief Harlan Schilling of Daylu Dena Council. Thank you so much, of course, for your leadership. It was an honor to join you here in your territory for this very important day. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Kalani, for that kind introduction. On behalf of the members of Daylu Dena Council, I am truly happy to welcome each and every one of you to our community. I'd like especially to say thank you to our elders, but most importantly, our survivors. You. Our community used to be a gathering place along this Liard River. We're not just the Kaska, but also nations as friends, brothers, and sisters could come together. Since this residential school was placed in the heart of our community, it's been proof and a constant reminder of what happened to our people. We've been waiting for this day for years, so let our healing journey begin now, as brothers, as sisters, and as a family. Thank you all once again for coming here. This is your day. You did it.
This moment in time, finally, this is getting its due attention. And now we can hear those children who couldn't come home. We're not done with the truth. We're not done with reconciliation. And I certainly know we're not done with healing. So as we destroy this colonial system, this building that represents the worst, Kaska brothers and sisters, you will build something better. We will come back better. We will take our language back, our culture, our people, our children. That's what reconciliation is.
It's an honor to be here today. The history of the Lower Post Residential School is tragic and shameful. Despite its name, there wasn't a lot of learning going on here. This was a place where culture was erased, where language was silenced, and lives were lost. And here we are today, learning from the past, acknowledging the past, coming together for our beautiful children. That's the light. Sugin Sila. Masi Show.
Deneta, hello. There's no words that can take away the pain and trauma that many of you and your families and your communities have experienced here. The impacts of residential schools across Canada are still felt today, and especially in the wake of the recent discoveries. As you break ground on construction of the new community multipurpose building, I hope that we can all look forward to a brighter future and a new gathering place where you can feel safe and make new and happy memories filled with the laughter and joy of your children, communities, and elders. Sugasenla, Masi, thank you et merci.
I just want to thank Harlan particularly for inviting me to witness the events today. When I was invited here, and Harlan and the rest of the council, the Daylu Dena Council, took me into the school and we talked about the issues over time, that was an intellectual exercise. But when Charlie Pete and Melvin Groot took me to the stairs to go into the basement, and Charlie could not descend those stairs it became real. And when Melvin and I were standing in the basement of that building, and he told me his stories, it became real. Truth. We need to acknowledge the strength, as Charlie said, the resilience, as people here have experienced. We acknowledge that truth, and together we can turn this page. And when this abomination comes down, and from it rises out of the ground a building based on the traditions and values and cultures of the Kaska people, then, only then, can we truly start the reconciliation that all of us feel in our heart today by coming on this special occasion.
It's 46 years ago that this place closed down because I was there. I'm a survivor, and I say that with pride because a lot of my friends are gone. It was a terrible place, but I can speak with this. You know why? Because I have my ancestors behind me. It's the truth. My grandma's behind me. My grandpa's behind me. My people are right beside me. When you have your people behind you, there's nothing that can stop you.
When I did the burning, and when I did the circle around the fire, I felt like just a little, and it was gone, and I felt really light. I wrote on there for my mother Hazel, my Uncle Perry, my Auntie Amy, my Auntie Lel, and all the ones who are gone now, who never did any healing, you know.
I wrote a letter to Sister Alico from that residential school. When I let her go, it was just such a relief, and I just saw a flash in my mind of Sister Alico's face, and then she was gone because I put that block in that fire, and that fire looked after the rest of it for me.
So the question is, what's one cool thing that you think this building could be?
Lots of fun for the kids and stuff.
The basketball court.
Oh, the basketball court.
Everywhere is connected, so it'll be easier.
It's true. It gives you somewhere in the community to come together, right?
I'm also excited about the basketball court, but I hope it's an indoor one so you don't get eaten by mosquitoes.
The list goes on. So shout out to these young people for sharing their ideas. Awesome.
It's an emotional day for me because I didn't know how to expect this day to roll out. But to see the youth coming in this morning, happy and smiling faces, and then right behind them are elders. Truly a powerful and important day. Our new Community Multi-Purpose Center will become a creative and nurturing space where our people can explore their ideas and with support and encouragement, move these ideas from dreams to reality. I think about how far our community has come, and I think about the endless possibilities that are in our future. To all here today with us in person and in spirit, I thank you again for standing with us as we bless the grounds of the new multi-purpose building and the start of a very bright future.
All right, leading by the young people, you want to take a shovel and just sprinkle a little bit in front. Leadership, if you'd like to jump in there, don't be afraid to get your feet dirty, guys. All right, can we get a round of applause for our young people? Thank you so much.
My mother as well went to this school in Lower Post, and she also attended Chutla. And I've heard many of the leaders speaking this morning and talking about our resilience as people and how we are survivors. You know, we are beyond survivors. We're well beyond survivors now. We're achieving things that we never ever thought that we would achieve. And if my mom were alive, she'd be so incredibly proud of all of us.
The impacts and effects of residential school affects every corner of this country that we call Canada. Every corner. As I witnessed that backhoe tear down that door and that wall, and the noise that it made, it just shattered right through my body. And that can be in a negative way or in a way of hope. The past is being shattered right now as we all sit here. I sit over there and I look around in the circle at our beautiful people from every corner of this Yukon and BC. And we are still here.
You know, this event has been in the works for a long time. And it's going to be part of the history for this community, for the rest of Canada. We want to be able to take part in building a future together. What better way to start than replacing a stark part of this history in this community?
Oh, it was almost like a crackling and a boom. I could just see the dust fly, and it was like, oh my goodness.
For our people to begin healing, we needed this building to come down. It's a first step to many steps for for the future of our youth, for the future of our elders, and the survivors. So now I think Lower Post could start being remembered and being known as a happy place, as it once was before this school came here. That was just, like I said, that's a day that's gonna, I think, live on for me personally for the rest of my life. I got to see a small preview of that before it got, but not the full version of how that is. The team that I think put the video together is absolutely amazing. The survivors, Rose, you speaking in it, everybody. It's just, I'm almost at a loss for words. If there was, like I said, one thing I could say is just never give up. And I think I'm going to ask Rose to teach me that, and have that'll be a word I think I'll never forget, is never give up. Premier, what were your thoughts?
Well, it was great to see friends again, the faces, the sense of hope that the day represented for everyone who was there. Also, it was nice to see the next day, to watch the building actually come down, because that's closure for me and closure for so many people. But as we gathered here today, with Tristan representing the next generation and Rose representing survivors, and to see her with her sweet hat in the video, and just how the sense of relief that people were able to put this building behind them, but not the feelings, not the impact. And that's what I'll take away from today and from my experiences with Daylu Dena and the residential school at Lower Post, is that the resilience that we are still here, the words that we heard so many times, and to be here with Rose, to hear her speaking in her language that was taken away from her. Language is culture, language is who we are, and deeply moved to see it again, and reminded of the sense of hope that came from what was a very tragic period in our collective history. It was profoundly moving, and I'm again grateful to have the opportunity to be here with you and everyone to celebrate this moment.
No, absolutely an unbelievable day. Like I said, the people of Lower Post, the Kaska, all of us that are at our home to that traditional area of Liard First Nation, the thank yous I don't think will ever be enough. Chief Kluwani Adamak, Chief Tigi, having Minister Miller there, and us as Kaska being able to gift the Prime Minister a piece of the Lower Post residential school. It was an unbelievable day, and if I can close with anything, it would just be those strong words to every survivor out there is never give up. We have survivors like Rose Caesar, and I like to think that my job is not done yet, and I will continue to listen and work. We've got young members like Tristan Miller, that's willing to continue, and I know he won't give up. And the Kaska are resilient. We're still here. So yeah, an emotional day for me already, having to see that video. It's an amazing accomplishment for the Kaska, for every survivor of that school. So on behalf of my community, Liard First Nation, Lower Post, I want to thank everybody, Premier Horgan, Tristan, and most of all, Rose. You're just an inspiration to myself, and like I said, every chance I get, I'm always honored to have you give me direction. So on behalf of our community, and like I said, Lower Post, Daylu Dena Council, and Liard First Nation, I just want to say thank you, and this is just the beginning. Ross River Dene Council, Dease River First Nation, and Quadacha. We are finally rid of the residential school in our traditional territory, and we will come back and we will be stronger than we ever have been. So thank you.